Welcome to Guns, Gear, and Guns with Gary Gunderson. I am Gary Gunderson. Today, old President Joe Biden signed an executive order on gun control, but what does it actually do, given Biden himself has admitted he can't really do much without additional congressional action? The executive order can only influence how current laws are enforced, and, unless you're the ATF, the executive branch is not supposed to make new laws. So essentially, this is an inept and nonsensical edict calling for an enforcement of the laws already on the books and a bit of political grandstanding. The second point in the order is literally implementation of the so-called Bipartisan Safer Communities Act that was passed last year, so not exactly groundbreaking. But I'm skipping ahead. Biden's motto is, of course, do something.
Do something, but I'm here with you today to act.
The actual order itself begins by saying that they will no longer allow the interests of the gun manufacturers to win out over the safety of our children and nation. A complete misconception that, one, gun owners do not value safety. I would argue they care about it and take it more seriously than non-gun owners, and two, that the reason firearms rights are pushed so heavily are because of the manufacturers and not the millions of gun owners. The order says that they've already accomplished so much before ever even issuing this order, which begs the question, why is it needed? The order says, through this whole of government approach, my administration has made historic progress to save lives.
I'm announcing another executive order that will accelerate and intensify. It directs my Attorney General to take every lawful action possible to move us as close as we can to universal background checks without new legislation.
This was made possible through the Less Safe Communities Act because it redefined who was required to have an FFL from something clear to murky. For those who forget, it now says that an FFL is required if you are selling firearms predominantly to make a profit, instead of language that was clear about a significant portion of your income being made from the sales of firearms. So some guy who is selling his Mosin Nagant, now that it has quadrupled in price since he purchased it, is going to make a profit. And that's probably a good motivation to sell it, perhaps even a predominant factor. So does just selling one firearm now require you to get an FFL? It's unclear, but the Attorney General will want to put the fear of federal crime into you to persuade you from that avenue in the hopes of reducing private sales. It also calls on the Attorney General to publicly shame FFL dealers who violate the law in hopes it will also deter people from doing business with them, which, depending on the violation, may actually be good for that business. It asks facets of the executive branch to encourage the use of red flag laws or calls or whatever.
About the red flag orders, laws, which my son, before he died, Attorney General in Delaware, was a great proponent of and instituted.
It promotes the safe storage of firearms, literally just telling some agencies to go out there and say,
I just think they're neat.
It also calls for the Federal Trade Commission to put out a report about how gun manufacturers market firearms to civilians and minors.
It does that by calling out for an independent government study that analyzes and exposes how gun manufacturers aggressively market firearms to civilians, especially minors, including by using military imagery.
Okay, the civilian market is a huge market for gun manufacturers. Who else are they going to market it to, Joe? I know you don't like it, but civilians can own guns, so they're going to be marketed to. That's the target demographic. They can't sell everything to the military, and most advertising of firearms is strictly controlled anyways. You can't help that minors think firearms are cool. One, because they are, and 2, you keep making it this forbidden thing, which adds to the appeal. It says law enforcement needs to work on implementing a ballistics database, kind of like a fingerprint database, which seems a little suspect since that information is not as useful as you might think outside of TV and movies. There's also an odd sentence in there asking Defense, Attorney General, and Homeland Security to further firearm and public safety practices through the DoD's acquisition of firearms, which I legitimately do not understand. Like, for military use? Or literally just buy up firearms to help keep them out of civilian hands? He doesn't touch upon this part in his speech at all to give further context. It also has a section I find hilarious, calling on the Secretary of Transportation to work to reduce the theft of firearms during shipment between FFLs, which I would hope they were already doing their best at. Apparently, they've had some issues at the DOT and need reminding to try to do the most basics of their job, such as discourage the theft of goods. It also asks for, as he puts it in the speech, a FEMA-like response to mass shootings, including financial compensation for those who lost loved ones. So, if your spouse is killed in a mass shooting, you get financial compensation. But if they die in a random car accident, F you, I guess? I'm all for supporting those in mental distress, but what he's saying here just feels odd and out of governmental authority. He then calls on Congress to act once again, including banning assault weapons and implementing universal background checks, amongst other infringements.
To pass universal background checks. Eliminate gun manufacturers' immunity from liability. And I'm determined, once again, to ban assault weapons and high-capacity magazines.
So to sum up, what does this really change? The answer? Not much. The real damage was already done from the previously passed bipartisan Make Communities Unsafe Again Act, which redefines FFL requirements, and the rest is either things they probably should have been doing in the first place, like trying to reduce theft, telling agencies to enforce policies already on the books, expanding mass shooting responses into disaster-level proportions, and calling on Congress to, of course, do something. That's all I have for today. I just saw a lot of articles about this and wanted to get a video out there to explain what this actually meant and what the order said as well. For more content like this, be sure to subscribe to the channel and consider supporting me on Patreon. Don't forget to like the video and share it as well to help the channel grow. It really does help with the algorithm and get the word out there. Thanks for watching.